Welcome to Pulse of Africa channel, your reliable place for real, up-to-date news from across Africa. If this is your first time here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you stay updated, informed, and connected to what's really happening from across the continent. Your engagement keeps our voice alive and strong. Let's get in the news. Ghana just pulled a move the IMF never saw coming. We're diving deep into the government's bold decision that's sending shockwaves through the international financial community. Get ready to learn what exactly Ghana did, why it terrifies the IMF, and what this could mean for the country's future. Stay tuned, this is huge. The Ghanaian government made some moves early 2025 that many are calling a direct challenge to the IMF's influence. And trust me, the implications of this could be huge, not just for Ghana, but for other developing nations struggling with debt and demanding more control over their own economic destiny. For years, the IMF has played a significant role in Ghana's economy. They provide loans, often bundled with conditions designed to stabilize the country's finances, especially during times of economic hardship. These conditions, often referred to as structural adjustment programs, typically include things like cutting government spending, privatizing state-owned enterprises, and liberalizing trade policies. The idea in theory is to create a more stable and market-friendly environment that attracts foreign investment and promotes sustainable growth. But here's the rub. These conditions often come with a heavy price. Imagine you're in a situation where you need to borrow money. The lender says, sure, I'll give you the money, but you need to sell your family car, move into a smaller house, and cut back on groceries. Sounds harsh, right? That's kind of what IMF conditionality can feel like for many developing nations. For Ghana, this has translated to cuts in essential services like healthcare and education, privatization of valuable assets like water and electricity companies, and increased pressure on local businesses to compete with cheaper imports. We've seen examples of this play out in the past with increased tuition fees at universities, sparking protests, and the privatization of the Ghana Water Company, leading to higher prices for consumers. These policies, while intended to boost efficiency and attract foreign investment, often exacerbate existing inequalities and lead to social unrest. So what exactly did Ghana do that has the IMF so worried?
And with respect to the question on monetary policy, what I can say is that Ghana has made good progress since the beginning of the program in reducing inflation. Inflation was extremely high at the end of 2022 at 54%. It has now come down substantially to 14% at end June 2025. Going forward, it will be important for monetary policy to remain sufficiently tight.
They've announced a bold, multi-pronged strategy to reduce their reliance on IMF loans and regain greater control over their national economy. This strategy includes several key elements, most notably a renewed focus on domestic resource mobilization and a diversification of their economic base. Let's break that down. Domestic resource mobilization basically means finding ways to raise more revenue within Ghana itself. Instead of constantly relying on foreign loans, the government is looking inward, exploring options like improving tax collection efficiency, cracking down on tax evasion, and promoting local industries. For example, they're investing heavily in digitizing their tax system to reduce corruption and make it easier for citizens and businesses to pay their taxes. Think of it like finally cleaning out your attic and finding a stash of hidden treasures. Ghana is actively searching for and reclaiming its own financial resources, and the diversification of their economic base is equally important. For too long, Ghana's economy has been heavily reliant on the export of raw materials like gold and cocoa. This makes them incredibly vulnerable to fluctuations in global commodity prices. Imagine being a farmer who only grows one crop, like bananas. If a disease wipes out the banana crop or the price of bananas plummets, you're in serious trouble. Diversification is about planting other crops like mangoes and pineapples, so you're less dependent on that single commodity. Ghana is now actively promoting sectors like manufacturing, technology, and tourism to create a more resilient and diversified economy that isn't solely dependent on the whims of the global commodity market. We've established the dire situation Ghana was facing: runaway inflation, depleted foreign reserves, and the ever-present pressure of IMF negotiations hanging over their head. We know they needed to find a way to stabilize the cedi, control inflation, and reduce their reliance on the US dollar, all while appeasing the IMF. It seemed like an impossible balancing act, but this is where the story even gets really interesting. Ghana didn't just ask for a larger loan from the IMF, they decided to innovate. They decided to challenge the status quo. They decided to, in a way, play the IMF at their own game. Ghana is rich in gold. They're one of the largest gold producers in Africa. But for years, they've been forced to sell their gold for dollars, then use those dollars to buy oil. A simple yet ultimately draining cycle that leaves them vulnerable to dollar fluctuations and the whims of international markets. Finance Minister Kasia Tofoson realized that this was essentially cutting out the middleman, which is the US dollar. The idea was elegantly simple in its concept. Ghana would directly exchange its gold reserves for refined petroleum products from oil suppliers. No more dollar conversion. No more reliance on fluctuating exchange rates. No more draining of precious foreign reserves. The government had to assure them that the gold was of the highest quality and that the exchange process would be transparent and efficient. But the biggest challenge, and the one the IMF undoubtedly feared the most, was the potential impact on the demand for the US dollar within Ghana. Remember, one of the IMF's primary tools for influencing a country's economy is through its control over access to US dollars.
By circumventing the dollar, Ghana was essentially loosening the IMF's grip. Imagine you're the IMF. You've meticulously crafted a system where countries rely on your loans, denominated in US dollars, to survive. Suddenly, a country like Ghana figures out a way to partially bypass that system. It's like a patient deciding to try herbal remedies instead of taking the prescription you wrote. It challenges your authority and throws a wrench in your carefully constructed economic plan. Preparing for a new financial landscape, Ghana's bold move to restructure its debt and prioritize domestic economic stability over strict IMF dictates has sent ripples throughout the global financial community. It signifies a potential shift in power dynamics, where developing nations are increasingly willing to challenge conventional wisdom and chart their own economic courses. But what does this mean for the average Ghanaian, and what lessons can we glean from this situation regardless of where you live? Firstly, understand that periods of economic transition, especially those marked by debt restructuring and potential currency fluctuations, inevitably bring uncertainty. For Ghanaians, this means being prepared for possible inflationary pressures. The government's focus on fiscal discipline, while commendable, might lead to spending cuts in certain areas. This could impact public services, job creation, and social safety nets. So Ghana just played a serious power move against the IMF. We've broken down how they bypassed expected austerity measures to prioritize domestic growth and what this bold decision could mean for the future of African economies. This could be a game changer.
Did you find this breakdown insightful? Hit that like button to show your support and help more people see this important story. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Ghana's strategy will pay off? And finally, subscribe to the channel for more in-depth analysis on global economics and African development. We've got more coming soon. Don't miss out. Thanks for watching. Stay informed, stay curious, and remember, Ghana's playing a different game. See you next time.